As you know, before we went on recess, the National Assembly worked on two important legislations, concluded work, so to speak, on two important legislations. And I feel very bad, very, very strongly about developments in respect of these two bills. Firstly, the PIB bill. You are aware, as I said, I spoke to some of you the day I led a group of senators to leave the chamber, because that was the right thing to do, in order not to lend our names to a legislation that is oppressive, a legislation that is insensitive, a legislation that does not serve the national interest, a legislation that does not take account of the yearnings and sufferings of the people who are producing the oil resources of this country. And I told you my views. I told you that President Yar'Adua sent the first bill to the National Assembly, the PIB. That work, PIB work, started right from Obasanjo's time. That was when the idea was mooted. And under Yar'Adua, the late Minister of Petroleum Resources, what's his name? Rilwan Lukman, he was Petroleum Minister when this bill came. This bill proposed 10% for host communities. It also proposed 10% for frontier development. No more. Now, unfortunately, the bill could not be passed all these years. Very sad. We are happy, people are happy that at least the National Assembly has been able to break that jinx or whatever looks like it concerning the PIB. But we must get it right. We must get it right. And as you know, I disagree completely, and most of us disagree completely with the 3% that was eventually passed. And of course, you know the history. You know that there was the Senate passed 3%, the House passed 5%. And they went for a conference, and then the conference came up with 3%, so we're told. But you see, this country is not helping itself. This country is not even helping investors. This country is not helping host communities by not creating the enabling environment that will enable investments to thrive. The argument is that, oh, anything more than 3%, investors will not come. And so what? If the host communities are not happy, will investors come? If the host communities do not have a stake in oil exploration and exploitation activities, the investors that they are trying to bring will not only come, those who come by whatever means, once they find that the situation is not conducive, they will take off. And it is not a wise decision, because you are not dealing with only one community. You are dealing with thousands, hundreds of communities. And don't forget that now, even the transit communities have a stake. I know that people are arguing why pipeline communities should be part of it, but there is sense in that. Because if you exclude pipeline communities, they can sabotage the entire operations, isn't it? So it's a question of percentage. It's a question of a proper discretion at the level of management of this host community fund. So still a lot of thinking, a lot of skill has to be deployed in the actual management of the host communities fund. But the world knows, these host communities knows, that at the beginning of this bill, what was proposed was 10% for them. And no one is engaging them. No one is explaining anything to them. All they have seen is that people who say they have majority votes have imposed a 3% on them, and they're angry. And let's be very clear. That's why I am of the view that this 3% that we have passed, the National Assembly appears to have passed today, is not helpful to the host communities. It's not helpful even to the oil companies. It is also not helpful to the country. Because if we want to attract investment, then we must all work hard, hand in hand with the host communities. Get their buy-in, get their understanding, get their support, and first create an enabling environment for investments to thrive. So I believe that it's not too late to make a new day. There is still room for a review of this so that we can have the buy-in of the oil company, of the host communities. I also made the case that, look, there's nothing wrong about appropriating money, giving money for development of frontier basins. But should it be up to 30%? Should it be? Frontier basins are several in the country. I know that it serves everybody's interest. It serves the national interest in exploring more basins. In exploring more basins. You have the Gongola Basin, you have the Benue area, you have the Sokoto Basin, you have the Dahomey, Ogun area, you have the Anambra Basin, and so on. Nobody is against that. Nobody is against it. But when oil-producing communities hear that 30% of NNPC funds, profits, are located to oil exploration, and they have been denied even 5%, 5%, not even 10%. They have been denied 5%. It's not a very helpful situation for the oil industry. So we wish our country well, but I thought because you all know how we feel, and I had to walk out because that was the right thing to do. We didn't want our names to be part of that kind of activity, and that is about it. I spoke to some of you that day, but I thought I should also, because some were asking me even as I was coming in, why the walkout and why not the walkout? That's a normal parliamentary practice. When you disagree and you make a point. Now, the second one has to do with the Electoral Act Amendment. And you have seen the backlash. You have seen the backlash. First, as a member of the committee, all the members who did a good job in presenting that draft, which would have taken care of all the controversies that are now being raised. That draft would have enabled INEC to transmit electronically wherever and whenever they felt that their technology available would make it possible for that to be done. That draft took care of all the concerns that some of the members raised, even at the level of the committee. And we pushed it through, and everyone agreed. Now, you can see the attack on the National Assembly, the attack on the Senate especially. But what I want to say, as I said in another interview 2 days ago, is that there is a marked difference between what we passed in the Senate and what the House passed from the reports I'm reading. I've not seen the copies, but that's what if that is so, then there's likely to be a conference committee on it. While casting my vote for electronic transmission, as you all know, I made it very clear that it is unconstitutional for the National Assembly, for any arm, for anybody, to subordinate the independence and operational powers and discretion conferred by the Constitution on INEC. You can't subordinate INEC to any other body. It is not constitutional. And if that ends up as the position of both chambers, you can be very clear, you can be sure what the likely decisions of the courts will be. And that's why you have the executive, you have the legislature, and you have the judiciary. Laws that are passed that are inconsistent with the Constitution will be challenged. And as I said on the floor, I'm not just saying it here, I said it on the floor, that it is unconstitutional to subject the independence of INEC, the operational independence of INEC, to another agency, to a report by another agency, no matter how technical, no matter how highly placed that agency may be. I thought we should also make that clear, that there is still room for further legislative work, and Nigerians should not lose hope. It is gratifying to see that Nigerians love democracy, and they are excited about voting, and the expectation is that they want their votes to count and their votes to be counted. And I believe that the National Assembly exists to make that possible, not to hinder it. I thought I should also clarify on that. And having said so, ladies and gentlemen, this is all that Countryman has to say for now, unless any of you has anything, one or two questions.
Chairman, petroleum industry bill. How will you feel? You said the Sixth Assembly, the late President Yaradua forwarded the bill with 10% proposal for host community.
Yes.
And incidentally, at that time, the Minister of Petroleum was also from the North, the late Iwan Brookman.
Yeah.
Now, how will you now look at it? Now we have President from the North, and your predecessor, Minister of State for Petroleum, he actually even brought the bill, and he was at the public hearing, even supporting a percentage less than 3%.
Yeah.
Pass.
The government position was 2.5%.
He supported the 2.5%. No. That is one. Then on the Electoral Act Amendment B.
Well, firstly, I think you should direct, and I think a number of these questions need to be directed to the Minister of Petroleum. But you know the government position was 2.5%. And he came to present the government position. So you ask him how he feels about it. Of course, we feel bad. That's why I voted against it. You know, this current president, this is not the first time President Buhari is presenting this bill. President Buhari's first proposal was 5%. That is why I've said that this matter has been so badly mismanaged. President Buhari's initial presentation was 5%. So, with better advice and better strategic thinking, they should have kept it at that 5% and discussed with the oil companies. For example, the oil companies still carry out CSR activities. So, you can engage them and say, gentlemen, what is the cost of your CSR? Build it into the after all, this percent is a percentage of the operating cost. So if you remove the CSR, hospitals, schools, some of them, they are not even usable, but they are award contracts. And it comes to a lot of money. If you say, gentlemen, factor all of that into the host community fund, because the fund is for development of those communities, not so. You will see that you will even get more than 5%. That's why I say, at the executive level, this bill has been strategically mismanaged with respect to the management of the host communities, because it will raise security investments. The Nigerian security forces will be overworked. The Nigerian security forces will need money to work. And all of this is an additional cost you are not factoring in. Meanwhile, if you said 5% and the producing communities are on the same page with you, you have a secure, stable environment. And this bill has a clause that if there is any breakage, any damage to any facility that is not an act of God, that fund will be utilized in fixing it. So this bill, the idea of this fund is to also give the host communities responsibility. Responsibility for the stability and safety of facilities. So the host communities are the most important partners. And now, the danger is that because of this strategic mismanagement, the host communities are now being alienated. And you are dealing with banditry that you have not conquered. You are dealing with kidnapping you have not conquered. You are dealing with Boko Haram for almost 10 years that is terrorizing everybody. And the security forces are still battling it. You want to open another chapter in over 8 states or more, in communities where majority of our people reside, most of them remote, that have very little federal government presence, no security presence. I thought that the host communities and the people should have been placed as the #1 partners for stability and for development of the oil-producing areas in order to guarantee sustainability in this critical industry, without which the national economy will collapse. So this is why I disagree with the strategic management. So direct your question to the Petroleum Minister and the GMD, especially the Petroleum Minister. He will answer why President Yar'Adua proposed this, 10%. President Buhari proposed earlier 5%, and why he from Bayelsa came to the National Assembly to propose 2.5%. So I won't answer it for him. You asked about the vote that was cast by my chairman, who is my good friend, with whom I disagree completely on this, as you know. Again, I think you should direct your question to him. And I will also be interested in listening to his reply. Why the chairman of our committee, who agreed with us at the committee level when we were crafting, and I moved this bill that was this clause, phrasing it to accommodate the concerns of some members who doubted connectivity in their areas. So that's why you see the difference between what we presented and what was in the House. In our own, because of those concerns, which are generally the same concerns that they cited, we said whenever.
Where and
when practicable, we called it. And everybody agreed and thought that we had addressed that concern. The underlying reason is that you cannot take away the professional judgment and discretion of INEC. We are not technical people. And that's why you see conflicting reports from NCC and so on and so forth. The agency that we should trust and rely on as to whether they can conduct electronically or transmit electronically is INEC. It's INEC. So we said, give them that discretion. Let's not fetter that discretion. That's why it was phrased that way. So that's how I'll answer your question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. No, because of order, let me sit down, sir.
Sorry?
I think because of the camera. 2, as a legislator from reps to Bayelsa as governor, now as a senator, you said we have a legislature that is oppressive. A legislation that is oppressive, yes, that came through maybe an oppressive legislature, 9th Senate. Sir, as an experienced man who has come this far, and you are going to be here in the next 2 years, what will you do? What do you think should be done to avert this oppressive legislation? More of oppressive legislation. And finally, sir, if Mr. President...
First of all, don't cast aspersions on the legislation. And I'm not here to say that the Senate or the National Assembly it should be cast in the way and manner you are saying. We can disagree with the legislation, which is what we are doing. Okay? But that characterization is, to me, too broad. It's too broad. For example, it's the Senate who raised it from 2.5 from the executive to 3%. All we are saying is that it's not enough. Not so?
Yes.
Yes. And because you talked about, let me put it this way. In nation building, particularly in a vast and diverse nation, relying on might, relying on majority, that does not build a nation. Okay? So you can quote me that I said majority votes, strength, numbers on their own does not build a country. What builds a nation in a diverse society like ours is the presence of justice, fairness, consideration one for the other. A nation that protects the weak against the strong. A nation that also exists for the few as well as the many. And that is the attitude that should inform all political leaders and actors. Not just somebody say, we have numbers. No, numbers don't build countries. Numbers don't. As a matter of fact, mere reliance on raw numbers without fairness, equity, and justice and consensus building is inimical to nation building. So, what will happen if the president assents to this bill, which we disagree with, and I say that, everybody knows my position. Number one, the 3%, as it relates to the 3%, and some other issues, we think that there should be a review. There shouldn't even be a signature. Shouldn't even assent to it. Should send it for more consultative and inclusive work, so that while trying to solve problems, you don't create more problems. And as for guarantor, the president is the, apart from God, is the president who is the repository of all security powers. So my brother, my namesake Henry, is the president that will determine and perhaps help to guarantee stability and safety. But if you have not done so in the Northeast for 10 years, you are not doing so in the Northwest for 3-4 years. Huh? And in the Southeast, in the Southwest, I think it's against the national interest to open another frontier of conflict. Perhaps in the only region that is enjoying relative stability because of the policies that President Yar'Adua initiated. He not only proposed 10% on the PIB for communities, granted amnesty, which is still working, and we're all in support of it. Created the Ministry of Niger Delta. Okay? Huh. And that's how you build a country. Stepping in, standing for the weak and the few, and not relying on numbers and power. Okay. Yeah. Can I take 2 more? So we can, yeah, 2 more. But I would like to hear from a lady, you know. Some of us, like I, were mandated by the Southern Senators Forum and the South-South Forum to reach out to all key opinion leaders. And we did. We did. We spoke to most of them, and they all supported our 5%. You may not know the kind of consensus building some of us have been doing, because for me, that's our brand of politics, consensus building. Disagreements are normal and legitimate, but you reach across the aisle and seek the common, a common position. So, and we did a lot of that. all of them assured us they were going to support 5%. Mind you, the executive proposal was 2.5%. So this 3% didn't just come from Senate. The 2.5 didn't come. What the executive brought and came here to defend in their public hearings and even before we voted was 2.5. The Senate report also had 2.5. But because of this consultation, the Senate committees graciously went back, did their work, and brought 5%. That's what you people may not know. And I and Senator Sekibo and Senator Ajibola Bashir and Senator Otazi were in that committee. And I went to see most of them, including the Senate President. Now, what happened was that before we took that deliberation and the vote, the Minister of Petroleum and the GMT were invited to give us the executive perspective. I don't know why it was done. It was not parliamentary, but that was a decision that the leadership took. And they came supposedly to enlighten us on the technical aspects of the bill. And they now ended, the main message they came to deliver was that either 2.5 or no investment. So I can feel how most members who had given us their commitment felt when they had that tough position by the executive that were saying anything higher than 2.5%, there will be no investment inflow. And there was no room for any interrogation. They left. And then we started the consideration. I think that last-minute intervention was what accounted for the change of heart. Even on the part of those leaders, because I believe they are gentlemen, they had given me, each of them and all of them, had given us their word that they were going to do 5%. So that's what happened. So as to why Senator Sekibo withdrew his point of order, that's a different thing. Again, direct your question to him. What I know is that when that withdrawal took place, I left. I didn't want to sit in the chambers while that decision is taking place. When we went for the president's dinner, and I got the conference report that it was 3% that eventually I and others also left. We were not in the dinner. Not because we didn't want to go. We were there to honor the president. But it was a terrible evening. And that was why at the consideration of the joint committee report, conference committee report, I again raised the point of order and made my position clear. Because for some of us, I'm a politician of conviction. Not a politician of convenience. Not a politician of convenience. Stand by what is right, principles and values that are dear to me. And we conveyed that and told the Senate President, he pleaded and said I should stay, but I didn't. And when I left, a lot of others also walked out. After that PIP, we went back. And gentlemen, that's a normal parliamentary practice. Unfortunately, that's where we are. So we expect that there's still room for the right thing to be done. Okay? Can I have the last? And it should come from a lady. Unfortunately, you are not a lady. You are standing. It's all right, but one of these days we'll do proper examination. All right, since the ladies have outsourced it to you, you take the last. What we are doing is also a line of action. Okay? It's a story that has just started. A story that is still unfolding. And everyone has a role in it, including all of you. Okay? To continue to make the case for fairness, to continue to make the case for equity on the part of all. If the parliamentary work at this stage is concluded, then I believe we are talking to the people in the executive arm. And I believe that even the NNPC and the the administrators of the petroleum sector are keenly following developments in the country and particularly in the Niger Delta. And I believe they are listening to all of this. I still think it's not too late to make a new day to do what has to be done. Okay? Thank you. Having said this, ladies and gentlemen, for the Muslims amongst you people, Barka de Salah, even though in arrears. And Assalamu alaikum. All right, thank you very much. God bless you all. Chairman, you can come. Who is from Wari here? Huh?
All of us are from Wari.
Very good for me. Because Wari not they take land. But what I want to say from Wari is that at all I am the wish.
But countryman is going to perform. Countryman will perform. Countryman will perform. That language, countryman will perform this time around. Don't do it.